Okay, folks, welcome to the intro. So tonight we're going to be speaking to Jon Shield about his win and new course record at the spine race at the sprint distance. So the baby spine, but not by all accounts, but definitely the shorter, faster race anyway. And then we're going to talk about Jon's success there and how he's set a new course record for that. Absolutely astounding, running in such difficult conditions. Also, to let you know that as well as having the usual sponsor, Yugoku projects, I'll get the name right 1 week, from Daryl sending the caps, and if you're interested, there's still a discount on those that you can get. So using Ultra Sam 5 to get £5 off at checkout. So go and have a look at the caps. There's new designs coming through. And if you want to look swanky on the trails, go and check them out. And also, for the next couple of months, we're going to be sponsored by Ranger Ultras, the PB 270 and PB 137. So Stu, as you know, has been a previous guest, and he a big involvement with the spine until recently. He's been set up on his own for a while now, doing Ranger Ultras, and this is a big event that he's now brought out last year for the first time. So it's 270k, so it's 168 miles going from Middleton Top near Matlock, going all the way up to Kirkby Stephen, following the Pennine Bridle Way. So not the Pennine Way, but the Pennine Bridle Way, which follows a similar route, but it's more runnable and better access and stuff, but using some of the same sort of waypoints along the way and stop-offs. So Stu is kindly decided to sponsor the podcast for the next few months leading up to the race. So what we're trying to do is build awareness of it. So if you fancy a multi-day, fully supported ultra that goes a big distance, so you've either got the distance of 168 miles doing the full, or you can do the half, which is 85 miles, going from, starts in Hebden Hay and goes up to Kirkby Stephen. So there's something there for everyone, and it starts, the date of it, should know this, it is April the 19th to the 23rd of April. So the full distance starts earlier on the Wednesday, and then on the Thursday the shorter distance starts. So this kind of catch up with each other and hopefully all finish within the same amount of time. So if you fancy a big event in April, so springtime, perhaps if you've got a long summer event that you want to work up to, the shorter distance of the 85-mile one, the PB 137, or if you want to go the full distance 168 miles, is the PB 270. So have a look for Ranger Ultras and check them out and see what other amazing races they do. I'm a good friend of Stu, and he puts on some really quality local races in the Peak District and around the area. So go check them out. Okay, so on to our interview with Jon Shield. Okay, so welcome to the Ultra Running Sam podcast, Jon Shield.
Yes, Sam. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you're a busy man. We were just talking about your work and how busy that keeps you. So you're not doing 14-hour shifts at the moment, then?
No, just a 12-hour shift. So yeah, it's always nights, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So it's difficult trying to sleep after that, because obviously it just doesn't. I just can't sleep. I'm terrible. So I live off about 3-4 hours a night most nights, apart from obviously when I'm not working and so on. So it makes it a little bit challenging at times, but on the flip side, I'm not traveling to and from work anymore. So it's 12 hours of work and that's that, instead of commuting. So I'm very lucky in some ways. In other ways, night shifts being good for your health, being good for recovery, not so much, but you've got to do what you've got to do, haven't you? Work comes first, unfortunately.
Yeah. you got to earn a penny, that's for sure. I know from like previous my different jobs that I've had, I've done plenty of night shifts, and the money's good, but yeah, it's not really a long-term thing that you want to be doing, is it? Especially when you think about how important recovery is for running. It's not something you want to be doing long-term, is it?
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is that a lot of people don't want to do it. So when you're self-employed and you willingly do it and work hard and don't let people down, then obviously you're more worthwhile. Even if you're self-employed, you're not an employee, but if you don't let them down, you're not off with sickness like a lot of people in employed jobs do, where they get paid if they're off. Then see, I don't have that luxury, so I really have to factor time off. I'm never off ill. I have my time off specifically for racing, pretty much, and that's generally how I work. Time off is built into races, whether they're abroad or in the UK, to try and factor in that little bit of recovery. And yeah, generally it works quite well.
So you work so hard that your recovery is actually running ultras.
Yeah. It's my adventure. And honestly, I think races, a lot of the time you can just switch off, and sometimes I switch off too much and then don't follow the route I should be following, and then realize I've gone wrong. And that you switch off a little bit too much. But yeah, it's, for me, I can just relax, particularly in the longer races where it's not quite the high intensity that you would in other races. I mean, if you're doing mountain, jungle, ultras, whatever, it's harder to switch off totally, because you're having to watch where your feet are going on the ground and constantly scared of rolling ankles and falling, tripping. Other races that aren't mountainous are a bit easier to switch off, such as the ice ultra I've done, and things you could just literally get in a rhythm, and you could be, in my head, I'm anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter. It's just so easy to switch off in those that I quite like it, because you've got no external things. You don't have to think about, oh, I'm letting the dogs out now, I've got to get back for the dogs, or I've got to work, and what other million things have I got to be doing. Actually, when you're away, you can solely focus on the run, and I love that from that point of view, and being somewhere where you can take in amazing sights, sounds, different cultures. That's probably one of the main things that I like about running, and particularly traveling with it and meeting so many people in the short time I have been doing this type of running. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, you get to see, that's the thing with ultras, isn't it? You get, if you're adventurous, you get to see the world, don't you, from a different point of view. So yeah, it's you're never bored with running ultras, are you? You can always find some amazing scenery somewhere.
There's just so many places that you can go and experience and travel with ultras, that, I mean, we're very fortunate in the UK that there's so many amazing places you can run as well. And I never take that for granted, because although I've only really been in the Lake District over this past year, when I was doing sort of lakes in the day, I went and started recceing, so that's fairly untapped for me, but I really enjoyed it. And you just realise that with Snowdonia being relatively close by, which my go-to playground, I hadn't been there in quite a while. Therefore, last time I raced there was GB Ultras Snowdon 50. And I've just gone back a couple of times now in the last couple of weeks for training this year now for upcoming races. And it just never fails to take my breath away when you look at how amazing it is. And unfortunately, when I go up to Scotland a bit, again, it was relatively unknown to me, Scotland, before going up with the Highland Ultra by Beyond the Ultimate. And now, after racing that in Knoydart, I went and helped out on it last year. I'm going to go and help out again on it this year. And course marking, it's sort of just, I get to go and do the route and get some good miles in and have a little playoff on my own as well on some amazing ridge lines. But it's just a breathtaking place. You've got all the deer just sort of roaming around there, and it's so peaceful, you hardly see anyone. And then you get the great community people, and you meet new people that are coming along running, as well as seeing old friends and so on who are doing the talks or that are working on it. So yeah, it's for me, in the UK, you've got amazing places even without going abroad, but I do like traveling abroad. So for me, you know, it's something that, well, you make yourself a more interesting person by going abroad and seeing places. And I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, I like that experience, and the fact that it's great being a runner and being able to run in your own country on a certain terrain. But my thing is that, well, can I go and run in all the different environments, and can I, you know, do well in all these different environments? And that was probably my main goal when I first started out running, is to win the Beyond the Ultimate Global Race Series, because no one's done that. So that's my aim this year, is to complete that. And it's all the extreme environments of the world, and then I'll have to look at another couple of things that I'm already sort of trying to plan ahead of, but obviously without losing sight of things. You know, it's always nice to have things to try and aim for, look forward to, and so on. And I think that's been more the case now of stupidly getting into the full spine race for January next year. So something I never thought I would actually do and never wanted to do, and now all of a sudden I wanted to do it and I'm going to do it. So yeah, it's very strange.
That's good news. It's going to be an all-star lineup next year, isn't it? With all the rumours of all the big names coming back to have a crack at it. So you're going to be in good company.
Yeah, it's hard to see. I mean, I don't know who actually is in it yet. You see the list of people that are in, but obviously you get other people that from Montaigne that will be in it. And you know, I don't know whether Damien's back. I have a feeling he will be. But yeah, it will be nice to race. Well, particularly the people that have won it, but I know a few people who've won it and been and done it in the past, and up there with Scarpa. So yeah, it's nice to sort of probably get some input from those guys. But I've got the Summer Challenger first, so at least that will give me a little bit more route knowledge after the spine sprint. So I'm sort of steadily working my way along, and we'll see with that next year. But hopefully this year puts me in good stead for that. So that was part of my process in thinking, well, if this year goes to plan, it should work quite well for a winter spine race. So we'll see. So yeah, probably have to look.
Are you signed up? Sorry, I was going to say, are you signed up for Challenger South or Challenger North this summer?
Yeah, so I've got the 108 mile. I always forget it's the North, isn't it? I think that one.
That's the South. That's the South.
Yeah. I never remember which one's which, but sorry, you can hear the dogs barking probably in the background.
Don't worry.
I thought 108 miles sounded like enough, but I think I'll probably end up going for the full set of distances. I think the 108 mile to me was going to be my limit on the spine stuff, and then I think I've just had to change my mindset. Instead of thinking the spine race as a race, I've got to see that as more like a military exercise, in processing with that being my background, that actually I need to treat it more as an adventure or something tactical, whereas I like to charge off and just go for it. And I think spine sprint, I could do that, but I fell flat on my face doing it, and you know, could have worked out a little bit better. But then the Challenger South is also one I think that I can pretty much go full gas at and try and have a good crack at the records there, and hopefully lower them quite considerably. I think it's doable. What time is possible is I've got an idea in my head, but what is possible is a whole different thing, and I haven't recce'd the second part of it yet. So it's trying to factor in all these races I need to recce for at the moment.
So you've got the benefit of knowing the sprint route anyway, haven't you now? So the Challenger South obviously only deviates from that when you get to Hebden, and it goes across to Hebden Hay rather than going to Hebden Bridge for the finish.
Yeah.
So it's that bit of it. So instead of when you drop down into Hebden Bridge for the sprint, you go right, don't you? You go,
go
through the town. Whereas for Hebden, for the Challenger, Hebden Hay, you sort of come down and follow the road down to the main road, and then go across and go up that way. So you kind of cut in that bit of Hebden Bridge off. But then, if you're going to go and recce it, then you're going to know all of those sections. So is your plan sort of are you planning on doing, you've done the sprint, you're planning on doing the Challenger South, are you bothering with Challenger North, or are you just so I suppose you're not going to be able to, if you're in the full winter spine, then you'll just go in Challenger South and then straight into the full spine?
Yeah, I think probably I might have a crack at that the following summer. So we'll see how it all goes, see how I feel after doing it, if I don't retire after the full spine. But yeah, I've got a lot planned, and it'll just see how it factors in the following year, because apart from the spine race, I've got nothing planned, but that will be when my sort of recovery is. Like now, I'm building now. I had a little slight rest after the sprint, and then now I'm just building a base up again, because my fitness has been very much, I had a layoff with illness for about a month, and then so my fitness towards the end of the year was very sporadic. I was kind of like racing, then trying to recover, race again, so it wasn't ideal. So I probably lost a lot of fitness in a way the back end of last year. So yeah, this year I'm trying to just bolster everything in advance for the upcoming races, which it's a lot of mountainous stuff. I'm doing UTS 50. I'd like to have done a longer version of that, but actually the short one it'll be fun. I have to try and work on some speed, but the rest of the year is not going to be really about speed. So from that, it's obviously the Challenger, which I don't plan on doing much training for the Challenger. I plan on doing mainly mountain running between now and then, and that's undulating. It's obviously a lighter kit list than what you do in the winter. The underfoot should be a lot nicer. Weather hopefully should be a lot nicer. So I think it's kind of my terrain that I enjoy running on the Pennine Way. That's what I realised, having not done it much before recce in the sprint, that sort of terrain really suits me. I'm a little bit heavier than most runners. I like carrying weight on my back, which is with the self-sufficient multi-stages, that's what you do. You carry a lot of weight, more than what you would in the winter spine. So for me, I don't have to train with weight on my back like a lot of people do. I do a couple of runs just to check my kit that I'm happy with it, and that's all I do. I don't do lots of runs. I just think you lose your fitness by doing a lot of pack running. So for me, yeah, I don't do that. But the race for that, so I won't train really for the Challenger specifically. I think I'll get enough training stimulus from home treadmill sessions and then doing the mountain stuff with UTS 50. So then I've got the Challenger South, then it's Kyrgyzstan with Beyond the Ultimate, a mountain ultra there. So that's at altitude, carrying a heavy pack, and it's about 200 kilometers and about 30,000 feet of elevation, although it's not been raced before, so it's going to be nice to go somewhere completely new, race that. But it's only about 6 weeks out from Dragon's Back as well, so I'm thinking that's quite a good preparation. Hopefully, if I can keep a bit of the altitude training, adaptation from that, and then come back, have a little bit of a rest, then recce the segments of the Dragon's Back that I won't have done. I'm pretty good now with all of section 1 of the Dragon's Back because it's local to me, so I know what to expect there. Day 2, I've done half of that, so it'll be more 3, 4 and 5 and 6, although 6 not really too fussed about. I think 5 is a day I definitely need to recce, and I will try and do 3 and 4 as well. And so that'll be some good training. And then after that it's what have I got? Probably Namibia desert. So I think that's it. All of them. Yeah. So it's a big year, yeah. And it'll be a contrast from November in a desert to then January 24 full spine. So I might be a little bit soft when it comes to the winter after that. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, maybe. So as far as just going back to the spine sprint then, so your win there in the sprint this year in the winter race, what just talk to me about that then. So you fully intended to take the course record on that, didn't you, going into it?
Yeah, I sent Will Roberts, the media guy, I just messaged him on Instagram about a week before. I put 8 hours 30, so I knew I was capable of that. But although I broke the record before that? 10 hours 3 minutes. But if I hadn't have fallen the about 41k mark, where I took a heavy fall, I'm injuring my right side of my chest, which actually now it's 5 weeks post race now, isn't it? It's just about right now. It's been sore the whole time, so I think I must have cracked a rib, but it was really painful. Like, all my running had been quite low intensity up until recently, just because I couldn't take the breath. And actually after the race it got worse immediately once I'd finished. But every breath I was taking after that fall for the other 31k or whatever it was really sore. I thought I potentially punctured a lung, and I thought I was possibly putting myself out of the race. But as the medic in me was thinking, I was like, am I all right? Am I all right? Am I all right? Just keep moving. But it slowed me down massively for a period of time, because I think I was on for the overall record for the summer sprint, which I think was 7 hours 33 or something, which that'll be what I'll want to go through in the Spine Challenger South in the summer. I'll aim to be going through at sort of that pace, I would think, with more daylight and so on. So it kind of was frustrating, because the performance was very much after that it dropped off. Before that I was flying and I felt really good, but I'm grateful that I could just continue and keep going to the end, because it could have so easily been a different story. And it was just a good thing that I could get through and could finish it. And it'll be they say live and learn, but you just can't really control those fast parts of the course. I was putting my foot down. It was going dark. It was sort of last light. I was going past people that were in the Challenger, trying to go around them safely. I'd just gone past some people before it sort of takes a sharp left where we were, and then it hits some technical stuff on a lot more descent and ascent where it was. And stop it. It was a fast section, just slightly downhill. So you're probably 16k an hour with the weight on your back, I would imagine, maybe a little bit more at that point. And I didn't know anything about it really, and I was lucky I didn't hit my head. It was just smack on the right side of the chest, and it was probably could have been a lot worse. So
that's it. Count your blessings. It could have been. You still came away with the win, and you still came away with the course record for the winter. So, if you ever come back and do the sprint, what time do you think you could do on it in the summer?
I think it's different, isn't it? Because you've got pretty much a completely different kit list. You're taking out all your sleeping mat, sleeping bag. What else was there? I know there's a fair few bits that mean you can have a lighter pack, which I think I think the summer time's pretty good, 7:33. I don't know who set it. I haven't seen it, but it's a good time. I think possibly the extra light would help massively over the technical sections and just some better weather. I think a 7:10, 15 might be possible. I think just without all the layers on and the jacket, I had a Gore-Tex Pro jacket on for the whole race and the waterproof trousers. So if you're there and can ping around in shorts and a t-shirt and a lighter pack, I think you're going to be potentially an hour quicker. I would think, but saying it and doing it are two different things, aren't they? So I can do this, I can do that. I'll say like
the spine has a way of messing with people's plans as well.
Oh yeah, it's weather, isn't it? You look at Jasmine's record for the full spine, and it's phenomenal. And she's phenomenal because I raced at lakes in the day, and she's relentless. But when you look at, depending on the weather conditions, you can't really. I mean, obviously there is a course record for it, but depending on which year you do it, then the weather can massively vary your time. I mean, the guys this year, they were in knee-deep snow, weren't they, going through the Cheviots? So instantly there, if there wasn't snow, you're going to make a lot of time, aren't you? So I think the time will be broken at some point relatively soon, and looking at what people are doing. And I think if you get a particularly strong field of people that keep each other going as well, I mean, you're always going to slow down on your own, but if you've got someone that keeps you honest, then in terms of setting decent times, and if you've got the right weather, then I think you're going to probably break the time by a decent margin as well. So it'll be good. It'll be good to see. And I'd say same with the Spine Challenge. I've seen Jim Mann's record there, which I think Tim's got the summer one, which is just over 23 hours. And then I think Jim Mann's got the winter and overall one, which was his time. I think it was just a shade under 23 hours, 22 hours, 50 odd minutes, which for a winter race is obviously a bloody good time. But so in the summer, I'm thinking, oh, what can I do? It's the unknown, because Tim is very good at obviously keeping a good pace going when he set the record last summer. I'm relatively unknown at that distance. I mean, I've run 60 odd miles. This is a story. I turned up a race a little while ago. Sorry, dogs again. 60, what was it? It was supposed to be a 66 miler or something, point to point. And I'd confirmed it with the race director and organisers, because it was put off with COVID, and it was out of COVID, and it was happening. So I messaged the guy, got a text message back. Yeah, we'll see here. So I turned up, and I'd stayed. It was starting locally to me in Shrewsbury, and it was doing the river, the Severn basically, and it was travelling down to, can't remember where it was, somewhere obviously Midlands, down further south. And so it worked out, it was about 60 odd miles, I think, in total. I think it was 66 miles I ended up doing. So I'd left my car up at wherever the finish was, got the train back to Shrewsbury and stayed in the hotel, breakfast the next day. So then I took myself to the start point in a taxi, got dropped off by the taxi guy. I thought, there's not really much going on here, walked round, and then I was like, where are they? There's no one here. My car's 66 miles away. And just no response. I was like, oh, sod it, I'm just going to have to go and get my car now. So just with the litre of water I had, and it was a nice summer's day, at least it was good weather. So I went and actually did it, and the guy had told me the wrong day. So when he confirmed it with me, it's part of a multi-stage race, which you could do each stage independently, or do the full 7, I think it was called, or whatever. So yeah, I was like, oh, what do? Do I just go and get on a train and go back to my car or whatever? I was like, I need the training for, I think it was for the jungle coming up. I thought I wanted a good long running. And so I set off and ran the length of that without any, obviously, support or aid or anything. So I was topping up out of water when I came across it, and managing on what I had. And yeah, it was all right. I did it in about 9 hours, mid 9 hours or something like that. So I was quite chuffed with the time, considering how I kept going, and lots of styles, which I hate. But yeah, going to go and get your car for a race that you didn't do. It beat the winning time by 2 hours though, my time, compared to the day after when they did it. That was some consolation. But I messaged the guy, he goes, oh, I'm so sorry. He said, well, I probably won't do it, but he given me, oh, you can come into any race you like. But yeah, it was a story anyway about, there you go. So I can do decent distance, but yeah, I think the only 100 miler to date was like my first ultra, actually. Therefore, I'll go and do a 100 miler on the Penlyn Peninsula, and it was just without COVID. I'd never done a race in my life, and a bit of an injury. I think I'd done 3 runs before doing this 100 miler, so I had no fitness. The first 40 miles was all right, and I was running with one of my mates, and like my blisters started, my feet were just mushed, and then it set off my IT bands, and I was a bigger lad at the time anyway. I wasn't taking it seriously like I am now. It was just sort of getting into it, and I ended up limping along with these poles, and it was about nearly 28 hours by the time I got round. But my mindset shifted. I wanted to say that I could do 100 miler and did 100 miler. That was my mindset at the time then. So just getting to the finish was the be all and end all on that, just so I didn't quit. And I think about the time I was out there, and I was in 28 hours. Bloody hell, like I'm bored after 10 hours now with racing, and that's gunning it. So the mentality to go longer, and I think that's the thing with these races that I'm going to be doing. I've got to get that mindset of, actually, your pace is going to be a little bit more steady. You're going out for a longer day, so control the urge to go and hammer yourself, so you feel like death from 5-6 hours in, and sort of have a little bit of restraint. And I need to start using poles as well. That's the thing. One of my things for this year is start using poles. I don't like them, but I think on certain terrain they're obviously very useful, but other terrain I think they're a bit of a faff. So one of my things I'm going to do.
Definitely use them on the full spine, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think my legs will give me an option there. Dragging the back as well.
Just talking about your when you were talking about your first ultra and stuff, we didn't really talk about your route into running then. So you come from a military background. So what was your background in the military then?
Yeah, so initially I did a sports science degree out of university, and I had friends that went into the military. But I went corporate and did a couple of years recruitment, high-end business bankers, finance, hated it. And then I went back, set up my own training business, started training people, strength and conditioning background as well, PTing. And I did that for a number of years, but I always had that itch to go in the military. But it was always parachute regiment, the elite force. I had mates that were Marines who liked to think they were the elite force. I told them they were wrong, that they were merely Navy. Sorry to any Marines that might be watching this, but it's facts. But yeah, I've got a couple of good mates that are Marines and ex-Marines, and for me, it was like I wanted to do something a little bit different. Obviously, they are great, but I wanted a different outlook on things from what I'd heard from them. I wanted to experience something for myself. So yeah, I went in, and I wasn't that young then compared to obviously a lot of people going in from school and so on. I was verging on 28 when I went in, and it's a shock because you go on to a terrible wage when you're doing the training, and having house and stuff. I was trying to do it, but it was an itch I wanted to scratch, and the training was particularly sort of stuff that I wanted to do. And P Company, which is their test week, which has a variety of interesting things, but you're carrying weight. So yeah, I went into the military, did all that aspect of things, enjoyed parts of it, didn't enjoy other parts of it, but got injured, and I basically couldn't land jumping out of planes. And nighttime parachute jump, I just had a heavy landing and snapped an ankle, damaged knee meniscus, and tore the labrum in my hip as well. And the ankle I've broken, well, I've done my left leg 3 times, different things too, playing rugby, double break, an ankle dislocation, another break, and then another break. So yeah, I've done it quite well on that ankle. And then yeah, the knee had a clear out with some keyhole surgery, and then I had an operation on the hip as well, which was kind of like a hernia repair, but it wasn't a hernia. And that, it just never felt right, and was there on base, still expected to do a certain amount of stuff, but it just wasn't getting better, and went into the military rehab program, and it just didn't respond at all to what they were doing. And even seeing physios, it never felt to me like it was something that should have been a problem to get back working. And I was still going to the gym. I've always been fit, always been healthy, whether playing rugby, did duathlon age group for Great Britain, things like that. But yeah, it wasn't something I felt should be stopping me. And seen some physios, and then I got to a physio at Lillishore, a guy called Jamel Ashlab, and he's worked with Olympians. It's where the England football used to be based. Amazing there, and they've still got, I think, like the Olympic archery team and gymnast team based there. But he works with a lot of very, very good people, and he sorted me out pretty quickly. Just thought it was really a really tight hip flexor generally, whether the surgery did do anything, and then that him just knowing what to do eased off my hip flexors. And to be honest, since then it gets a little bit tighter than the other one, but I've not had any of the issues because it stopped me cycling, it stopped me running. It was just really uncomfortable. So yeah, he sorted me, and that got me back running in lockdown, and I just realized I could keep running, and the dogs loved it. And so we just kept running. Entered a couple of races, and then realized that actually not every race has routes, and like a path. Got my backside kicked in a couple of races quite early on, shocked the system, but it was a learning curve. So I still learn this year. A couple of DNFs that I've had this year have been through probably trying to train too hard, too close up to the races, coming back off of the races. And I like training, I like racing, and that's probably one of my weaknesses. But the lack of sleep, I touch on with work and doing the nights, the few hours sleep here and there, I don't recover particularly well when I'm doing a lot of work, particularly when I'm trying to work the mileage and elevation. So it's what I try and reduce it down in the week before a race, where I'll try and recover a little bit more, get a little bit more sleep in. But ideally, I'd just be having a lot more sleep in these high end mileage weeks that I'm doing, particularly now building. It could be a lot better, but everything in life gets in the way with stuff, doesn't it? And everyone will have some sort of excuse, like I do there, as to why they can't do something particularly as well as they could for a race or running. If you asked anyone, they'd have something, whether they've got a newborn child or work commitments where they're actually having to commute, or they have to travel with work, and there's always going to be something that has to give, isn't there? So I think you just have to get on with it and make the best you can, and try and adapt and work around things as much as you can.
Yeah, I think balance is a big thing, isn't it, with everyone? So regardless of whether, if you're a family man and you've got work commitments and you find time to train there, or conversely you've got pros who, it's their job to train, but then they've got the danger of having all the time in the world to train and then overtraining and not approaching it that way. So I think sometimes, having commitments is good because it gives you structure, and you don't run away with yourself basically, and you don't overtrain. So, but I would say that your recovery from those injuries sounds amazing. It's nothing. You've not really had any long-term issues since you've been running again with niggles coming back from like your ankle and things like that and your knee.
No, my knee's pretty good. I think my ankle at the moment, it's always been stiffer, so I probably don't have quite the same flexibility. And I think technical mountain races, I'm always a little bit more cautious, I guess, with things. It's been hurting a little bit more recently, but whether that's just a bit of arthritis kicking in with cumulative mileage being added and so on, I'm not sure it is. I think I've probably just tweaked a ligament or something that has just been going on for a few weeks, but these things tend to ease off after a while. I'm very much, if it's people feel things and they'll ease off. I don't really, unless I think it's going to massively affect me. I think a lot of the time your body is adapting, and it adapts to stresses, and I think sometimes people will ease off at any hint of something. And I think you can, if you're always easing off as an ultra runner because you feel something niggling a little bit, then you'd never really get the volume in, you'd never really get the adaptation, the muscle sort of adapting to the loads that you place on it. And I think, it's like overreaching is good to a point. So for me, I think sometimes yesterday I felt particularly tired. The body, I was just trying to get on the treadmill, do some miles, and it wasn't playing really. And I sort of struggled through about 5-6 miles, and it was hard. It was just really hard. One of those days where you think, well, should you keep going? Should you not? I wanted to do a little bit more, but I knew that if I got a good sleep last night, because I wasn't working, and I could get up today, have a good day, got a couple of days off before working again, and I knew I've got a heavy back end of training this week just with people that I'm going to go out with on the mountain stuff. Well, I'll ease off that little bit. I still made myself do a reasonable amount, and actually the last sort of 5 minutes of that run probably felt the best of the whole run. But it's very easy, I think, to just stop doing stuff. And if you think about it, in a race, when the going gets tough, you can either quit and, I've DNF'd a couple of races, but I knew it wouldn't be productive for me to go on. There was no benefit, and either all or nothing. If there's something that's going to benefit me, if it's not going to benefit me, it's going to injure me or put me out and stop me training for longer, I won't do it. And I've always been sort of very different mindset from running the 100 miles to being a first 100-mile race that I just wanted to complete. The mindset is very different to how I look at it now when I want to go to every race and win it. And I think probably like the full spine race would be a different thing for me again, because obviously I want to go and I want to win it. And that's just the nature of how I'll be. But how you get on and how you go about it when you do it, I'm sure there'll be a point in the race or where I get to, and everyone's going to have their trials and tribulations and hardships in that race. But for me, although I'll have that goal in my mind, another goal will be, well, I do want to finish it as well. So And I think it's the same with that with Dragon's back. I think that'll be a little bit different because I want to go and win it as well. So if I'm really not performing, would I want to continue and not do as I know I can do? It's difficult because, everyone wants to perform like they know they can. But I think for me, the spine, the winter will be, I want to complete that and then see what happens during that and how I feel, how the body reacts, because I'm never going to do a race that long, and you don't know until it happens. And unless you've experienced the spine race before and got that experience, I can't really expect much until I've done it. Yeah, you can do a 100-mile race, which is good build up, part of the spine route, the challenge at 108 miles of it, but still it's not the full spine, and it's very much different adding another 148 miles on whatever it is, 152 miles onto the
168.
Yeah, so
160.
yeah. So adding that much mileage on again is a completely different story, because you can completely spank in after 100 odd miles and you might be first place at that point. But
well, that's how it was. That's how it was with Kim Collison and Damien. They came through Hawes together, and that was So around 100 at the finish of Challenger South, and they both looked reasonably good. Damo looked good. Kim didn't look as good, and then after that they went over Schoenefeld, and that was Kim's race over. So he pushed himself beyond what he could do at that point, and then paid for it basically. So it's but then it's such he's coming back again this next year, and he's sort of saying third time lucky with it.
You know what? He'll turn up and he'll get it right at one point, and he'll absolutely smash it. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, and then he'd go and blitz the record as well. He's got enough experience on it now to know what he's done wrong, that how he can then go and do a better job of it and get it right. And I think he's an experienced guy. He's had a great career, hasn't he? But obviously he's had a couple of things on this which can happen, and unfortunately it's happened to him a couple of times on it now. But like I say, it's obviously the first 100 odd miles he's been fine on it, and but it's, I guess, just trying to program. And I probably see myself like him in a few ways, that he probably just likes going out to race and going off and enjoying the atmosphere, and gets carried away a little bit. And I get that. I really get that. Because if he eased off, maybe down the line he would have caught Damo, and down. You just don't know. Everyone's going to have high points and low points, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jack Scott, he made an interesting point when he was talking about. I asked him about that small group that they were in at the beginning. So there was Kim, Damo, Jack, and Eugenie, and they were all running together in like a train, came like over Wessendon and everything. And I said, did that feel right at the time for you to all be together? And he said it felt right at that point, but he knew by the law of averages that out of the four of them, there wasn't going to be four of them staying together right till the end. He knew that at least two of them were going to go, and he just wanted to make sure that he wasn't one of the two that disappear. And to get himself in that position, he slowed down so that he knew that because they were going slightly too quick for him over through that night. And he says he had to run through the night on his own, but he took that as a sacrifice that he made to know that he would then have the pace later on in the race. So making intelligent decisions in a race, and not based on your, as much as I suppose you've got that instinct to race, you've in a race so long, you've got to hold back a little bit to make sure that you're not sort of sandbagging yourself further on in the race.
Yeah, because you look at his pace, Jack's got probably the best speed out of everyone there in that race. You know, Damo, Kim, Eugenie, all those guys. Yeah, what he did in UTS 50, and that pace was phenomenal on that route. And you think, well, his easy pace is probably going to be a lot easier than the other guys he was racing with then. So I guess it's hard, but he did a really good job managing that effort to control it and ease off when he did, because obviously it did pay dividends when he came back in so strongly towards the end. And but then it probably spurred the both of them off to set a good time as well in, you know, those horrible conditions. And yeah, it's I say you only need some better conditions in a race where you've got, like those guys were going, and you know, that'll probably lower the ceiling, won't it? I mean, you've got John Kelly, I know, who was on about coming back, and Gary Robbins and all these
I think they're
guys. Yeah, it'd be brilliant. It'd be brilliant to have them there and to race. It'd be it'd be a very good lineup to come in against. But yeah, whether they all do or don't, it'd be a nice lineup to see anyway. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on weather then for the race? Because I know obviously they were sort of saying, you know, they had all that snow and it was crisp, cold and clear. So although it was sort of icy underfoot in places and snow up to the knees in other places, the alternative to the normal spine weather, like Damo was saying, was that you imagine the spine as being this like winter wonderland, and that's how it was this year. But in reality, it says most of the time it's just rain and bogs and just slipping in puddles and stuff. So what's your preference on? Because I know you've got that experience with the ice ultra of running with blue skies and the sun out and nice crisp snow conditions to run on. What about, how do you feel about if it would just rain solid for the whole week during next year's spine?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I probably prefer what the conditions were like this time around. I mean, for the sprint, it was pretty nasty. It was very windy, bit of hail, bit of rain, but you know, I don't like the wind. You know, that the wind's just blowing your pack the whole time and everything, and you know, crosswinds, headwinds. It's not fun. But I hate the ice. I'm not very good on ice. I'm very sort of conscious of falling and things. So I don't mind the snow. So if it's a good layer of snow, that's fine, but it's obviously going to be harder going, more work on the muscles, legs, hip flexors, things like that. So I think if you're giving me a choice of would I prefer it to be boggy, so I think they didn't have the bogs to deal with the same, did they? Because they'd frozen over quite a lot, I think. So I think probably the conditions they had, I would have preferred that as opposed to just raining and boggy the whole time. But probably if you could get rid of a bit of the snow, which I think was probably the only thing that stopped them getting the record, then yeah, if it had just been a little less snow, they'd have probably been a lot happier just going over the Cheviots. So yeah, I think conditions generally were all right this time. For my, I think I didn't mind the weather at all. It was good, and everyone's got to deal with the same weather, haven't they? So it's a case of who deals with it the best, and everyone's going to have things that suit them more than others in races. I hate descending and stuff. So like lakes in the day, going over Blen Caffra, for me, I'd wrecked it once and took the dogs, or took one of the dogs, and it was horrendous. The rock was slippy, and it's exactly what I hate. And you know, you won't really see me doing sky races just because it's for me, it's just an unnecessary risk with injury. We're, you know, self-employed. Because these mountains, you still obviously got a risk, and you can still hurt yourself quite a lot. But for me, those are an unnecessary risk. I'm not as young as some people there, and I'm not as nimble. And with the previous ankles and injuries and so on, it's not great. And I remember I was following George Fisher on Lakes in the Day, he ultimately retired, unfortunately. But I was chasing him up the backside of Blencathra. He's about 30 seconds ahead of me, and I was catching him. Of course, this is good. And but then over Blencathra, and he dropped me by about 2 minutes just on that descent. And obviously, he's Great Britain mountain runner, isn't he? And you know, I don't know how he did it. I don't know how you do that. I go any quicker down it, because I thought I went quite well down it, but obviously I didn't go that well down it. So, yeah, he just cleared off down that, and I think that's the difference with some of those type of races. It doesn't suit me, but the race in itself generally was quite good. It suited me. But yeah, anything technical, I find that I go backwards on it relatively. I mean, I still do all right because I'll make up time on climbs and so on. But yeah, you play to your strengths. And although all the different races I do, just an out and out, probably technical race wouldn't suit me. So I don't think I'd enjoy it. And I say I'd always be outweighing on my mind that I wouldn't get paid if I was not working or had to be off. So yeah, I much prefer things I've got more control over.
Yeah, absolutely. What about so you say you signed up for UTS 50 then? So have you been looking at the time that Jack did last year for that?
No, they've changed the route this year. So I think they've reversed it basically, which will be interesting to see how it runs, because I know the route. I've run it quite a lot in training anyway, last year's race route. So yeah, going the other way is going to be quite strange. So I will go and I'll use it as a training race for not training race. I will use it as a training race, but I do want to be competitive in it. I do want to try and get an automatic spot in the top 3. But I guess that sort of distance is more open to fast runners. That, you know, probably you get a 2:20 odd marathon runner who, if he does a little bit of hill work, he's probably going to be quite handy in that still, apart from maybe his quads blowing and stuff. But, you know, they're probably going to do relatively well over that sort of distance. And the terrain that they go over, actually, I think it'll be better reversing it actually in a way that I think it'll be quicker. So yeah, it's a little bit short in a way for me. It's probably going to be a 6-hour race, I guess. I remember last year it's about 30 miles, 31 miles, and I think there was about 12,000 feet of elevation, something like that. So it's a good hard day out, 13,000 feet, something like that. But yeah, I think it's going to be more enjoyable, more runnable. So for me, it'll be good training for Dragon's Back, for Kyrgyzstan, and it's not going to do me any harm for the Challenger South Ivorwoods. So for me, and it's a great area to play in. So I'm trying to juggle recce's on Dragon's Back at the moment. I'll do that, obviously, just training and recceing it, and then flip up to the Pennine Way probably on a couple of occasions as well, to try. And I know I was chatting to Tim Piggott about it the other week, and he says there's a section where you've got to kind of know where you're going through the fields over the stiles, instead of trying to look out for stiles, particularly if it's at night time, which I don't know where I'd hit that point at. So I need to recce that and make sure I know in my mind, I'm going diagonally left here, diagonally right, or whatever, just to try and make sure that if I'm going for a fast time, I kind of know where I'm going without sort of having to look and, going big shapes around fields looking for the damn style. But yeah, so yeah, it's a big year, lots of years.
Yeah, so exciting year ahead of you, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you again and seeing you. I'll most likely probably see you at some point at the Summer Spine. I don't know what I'll be doing yet, but I'd imagine
multitasking,
doing some more media work, and then I'll be definitely seeing you next year at the at the winter spine and following you around with a camera. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Don't fancy running it?
Well, I've got a place. I've got a place in a lottery, a volunteer lottery place. It's not a place. It's not guaranteed at all. But you can, if you volunteer for the week, you can get you get a ticket basically into the volunteer lottery to get and I don't know how many. It used to be quite good odds at getting a place, but I think they reduced the amount of places that are on offer. And obviously loads of people want to do it as well because it's the iconic one. So chances of getting in on the volunteer lottery are slim, but it's in there, and I would do it if I got the chance. So
I don't know. You know what? When you look at it though, how many people that volunteer on it actually would want to do the full spine, or capable of doing it? Some people just like to volunteer, don't they, and help, which is amazing. But how many actually want to go and do the full thing?
Or maybe people could be convinced of if they're sort of not quite set their sights on it, but then got a place, maybe it would sort of convince them to do the training during the year to have a good crack at it, probably.
Yeah.
The case with me.
Yeah, it's just hard to train for it though, isn't it? Because you can only do so many miles in a week, and you can only do so much elevation, but you can't really account for how little sleep you can get away with during that many miles. You can't train for that, can you? You can do some big back-to-back days, but it's unknown until you try and do it, and you won't really know how you're going to respond, how you're going to do it until you actually do it. So, but that makes it quite exciting in a way as well. Obviously, some people have got the knack now. They've done it enough times. They know what their body's capable of, and they know what they can get away with, like sleep wise and nutrition wise and clothing wise even. So it's getting all those things and figuring it out. And I think you need an element of luck. Obviously, experience helps, but yeah, you don't know until you roll the dice, do you? So
that's it, absolutely. Yeah. And the spine is one of those races that is unpredictable, so you never know what's going to happen. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there next year and seeing how you get on, and all the best with all of your races, all of your many races. Well, say races, your holidays that you've got planned for this year.
Yeah, it's relaxation, isn't it?
That's great. Thanks for coming on, John. Appreciate you coming on and chatting to us. Thanks for that.
Thanks very much for having me, Sam. Nice speaking to you.
No problem. Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Cheers, mate.